Okay, we're just going live on YouTube for everybody who's joining us with that. I'll take just another moment. We're just going live on YouTube. Okay, Mr. Chair, I think we are live on YouTube. We're broadcasting. It looks to me like we have a quorum present. Let me go ahead and get a presentation up here on the screen to.
Okay, Abby emailed me just a little while ago and said she was going to be coming on. She didn't know whether to come on as a commissioner or as a participant. So I wonder if she's out there somewhere. Is she on?
I'll check the names, and yeah, where we are short another commissioner, she's interested, she can join us. So
is that Abigail Hunt, Lyle?
Yeah.
I see her here. I can promote. Oh, you got it. Yep, go ahead.
Are you watching my screen? We got her. Okay, so
go ahead.
Abby, we've got you on here unmuted. We had a commissioner that had a conflict come up and is not able to attend this evening. So you're welcome to participate and vote with us if you would like tonight on these items.
And all right, sounds good.
Good. Well, Abby.
And well, I think we're okay to start, Mr. Chair.
Okay, are we ready to go? We will start. Welcome to tonight's Planning Commission meeting, such as it is, in a entirely new experience for all of us. And we welcome the staff. And Lyle, do we know, have we got any public that are on yet?
Yes, we do. Bear with me as I'm learning how to see them all.
Right.
I noticed there were at least 15 that had joined us when we started this. Heather, do you mind letting us know? Can you see that information, how many you're on?
Not hearing Heather.
Let me go through it this way then.
You can jump in if you need here. Sorry, guys. 14 in attendance right now.
14? Okay. Good. Lyle, I don't know if you can explain for the public, I mean, generally they probably will not be, we won't be able to hear them. But I think if they do have a question, I don't know, you might be able to enable their audio. I don't know about that, but there is a feature on Zoom that allows them to raise a hand and to for you to enable them, or to also provide a comment on the chat part of the program. Is that right?
In this particular setting, what we've set up, Mr. Chair, is they should see on their screens the option to raise their hand when they'd like a comment. It will not automatically make it so that we can hear from them. We will notice that on our end. And when the chair is ready to hear public comment on the item, we will then go see who has their hand raised on each item and announce them one by one. And we will allow them to speak at your behest as the chair. I will think we've disabled the chat function for this particular item. So we'll keep everything via audio under the order.
Great. All right, sounds good. Before we begin, anybody have any questions? Okay, not hearing or seeing anything. Lyle, are you seeing anybody who's raising a hand or has a question?
I have one person who's one of the applicants who's raised a hand.
Want to find out? Let's find out what the question may be.
Yeah. Gordon or Heather, are you able to allow them to speak?
Yep, I got you. She is.
Can you hear me?
There we go.
Cool. I just, when we're done with our, like our part to do, would you like us to leave or would you like us to stay on for the whole meeting?
No, you don't need to stay on for the whole meeting. You can stay on just until your item of business is completed. You're welcome to stay on if you'd like to, but no reason for you to stay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, with that, let's go to our meeting. Our first item on the agenda will be, of course, the minutes from our March 12th meeting. Commissioners, are we ready to give approval to that? Have you all reviewed that, and any corrections or comments? Not hearing anything. If anyone, is anyone willing to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve minutes.
That's from Steve. Is there a second?
This is Quan. I'll second.
Juan seconds. Any other discussion? Let's go ahead and do a roll call vote on this. And, right, I'll just call off your names and if you would just vote then. Toby?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Juan?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
And- Okay, and Abby.
Aye.
All right, that's all, and I from the chair. All of us have approved the minutes. Very good. Our first item of business on the agenda is a conditional use permit for a major home occupation B, a plumbing contractor at 143 South Bonneville Circle. The applicant is Garris Killian. We'll go to staff.
Dan will present that for us.
Hello there, Mr. Chairman.
Howdy, howdy.
What we have is a conditional use for major home occupation B. It is located at 143 South Bonneville Circle. It's shown there. He is a one-man show. He has no employees. He has a pickup truck, a small 8x10 trailer. He's more of a plumbing service plumber. So basically he'll have no materials, no supplies ever delivered at his house. He just picks them up at the supply house and goes in homes that's hired him to do his service, his plumbing service. Staff recommends that he is allowed to occupy or conduct business as provided by staff report.
Okay, I also noticed that in the description of the project, it talks about a 10-foot trailer that will be parked in the driveway. Is that right?
Right, it is an 8x10. It will probably never be behind fence because he doesn't have a fence. But he's got a long RV park side of his house. His lot's big. He's the only house at the end of that cul-de-sac. And it's just a small covered trailer. It's not an exposed trailer, so people can see his tools or anything.
Okay, and so everything, it's an enclosed trailer, everything will be inside of it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions from the commissioners? Not hearing anything. All right. Let's see, is Mr. Cody here? I don't know if he is or not. I don't.
It looks like he is, Mr. Chair. He's raised his hand. We'll allow him to speak here.
Okay, great.
You brought this up in your meeting. What question do you have for me?
Commissioners, any questions of the applicant?
Are you planning on putting a fence in at any time or leaving it just unfenced?
We're not planning on putting one in anytime soon. We'll be finishing our basement before that and anticipate end of the year at the soonest before we'd be finished with that.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? All right, Mr. Cody, thank you for your participation and answer of questions. We'll go now to the Commission members, any other discussion? Or is anyone ready to make a motion on this?
I'll make a motion.
And that's coming from Josh?
Right. I move that we grant or we approve a conditional use permit for a major home occupation contractor at 143 South Bonneville Circle.
No additional conditions?
No conditions as recommended by the staff report.
Right, all right. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second the motion.
I'll second.
That's from, who did the second, please?
Steve did.
Steve, all right. So a motion by Josh, second by Steve. Any other discussion by the commission? All right, let's go through and vote. Let's start with Steve this time. Steve?
Aye.
Juan?
Aye.
Scott? Uh-oh, things have frozen up on me. Scott, are you there?
Yep, can you hear me?
Now I can, yep.
Aye.
Aye, all right. Josh?
Aye.
Abby?
Aye.
And Toby?
Aye.
And I from the chair. All right. So that is approved. Thanks, Mr. Cody. It looks like you're approved for your conditional use permit. Okay, next item on the agenda is a conditional use permit for an electric message center sign. The applicant is Yesco Electric Sign. Property is located at 320 West, 200 North. It's the McDonald's at that location. Staff?
Yes, sir. McDonald's is wanting to replace their old marquee that they take the little rubber suction cup and put the black letters up on. I don't know what you call that. A black letter marquee sign.
Yep.
A new electronic message center. It's going to be 9'6" by 5'2", which is under the required or the maximum 300 square foot they're allowed. It's only 50 square feet. It's the sign meets all the setbacks required by the city. There's it's under the 45 feet. It's setbacks within the inches, and it's pre-existing sign that was approved a long time ago. We see no reason why it should not be allowed. It meets all the standards and zoning for such a sign.
Okay, so an electronic message sign there on the McDonald's sign to replace the marquee lettering. Any questions from the commission? Staff?
I had one question. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. These can be really bright at night, and I'm just wondering if in the conditions we limit the brightness after dawn and before like dusk to dawn, basically to limit like the blinding aspect that message center signs can have, or if it's not as much a concern because it's not a ground level marquee.
Yeah, good point.
I don't know if our ordinance states anything. I mean, I think that the standards from the commercial sign developers are such that they have that dimming feature, but it's just one that I would make sure that the sign will dim at night appropriately so that it's not like big low light and for drivers.
I'll speak to that with Commissioner Hess so that the planning commission knows their options. So within our ordinance for an electronic message center sign, it requires that any sign of this nature be capable of being dimmed according to the ambient light conditions. So some of them have sensors that they'll do it based on the lighting, or they'll have a computer program that bases it on the time of day and it can dim. So I have been assured that it's capable of doing that function. If you would like to get specific with the applicant, and I will ask other staff, if they're on, I believe they were hoping to participate tonight. They could talk to you how that's functioning, and that certainly could be something that you could get more specific on, of how you would like to see that happen.
Thank you very much. And I think as long as the ordinance addresses it, if it were an issue in the future, then we would have an enforcement mechanism through that to have it match the ordinance. So that, thank you.
Okay, let me just, before we proceed, somebody's got a barking dog in the background.
It's
And-
mine. I'm trying to get my kids to take it out. Hold on.
And if you have a lot of ambient noise, if you could just put your sound setting on mute, and then when you want to speak, just unmute yourself, but that would probably help a little bit. Okay, let's see. Any other questions from the commission? Let's go to the applicant if there's someone here. Is there someone here from the applicant?
Mr.
Lyle,
Chair,
anybody there?
this is Jordan with staff. We've got a Darius that's raised his hand. I don't know if we're taking any questions
Is
for this out, but I'm just checking with you.
Yeah, and if he's still on, Jordan, he was the previous applicant. He may have some other things. Is there anyone on there with the name Jordan? I'm sorry, Justin Grubb?
Justin Grubb. No. Unless they're a panelist. Let's see. Nope, I'm not seeing any Justin.
okay, so we don't have anybody here from the applicant. Scott has just raised the question about being able to dim the sign. Any other questions or comments from any of the commissioners? Are there any other comments out there, Lyle?
Hey guys, this is Quan. Real quick, I'm sorry. I do have a
Yeah.
question, just out of curiosity. Maybe we can ask this, but obviously that's a electronic sign. In the case of a emergency, is there a way to contact somebody and relay whatever emergency messages may come from either the PD or the fire department, or from the city itself?
Oh, you mean to actually use it as to convey like a public service message or something?
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a point of contact. We text them, hey, can you put this up there? And they change the sign.
It's not a bad thought. It seems like, I'm guessing that that's probably going to be controlled by the owner or by the manager
Right.
inside the building. And I'm guessing we might be able to contact, the city could probably contact somebody there and ask them to put up a message.
That is as good as I could say at this point without the applicant here. Is we have contact information for the businesses located at that location. That's probably who we would reach out to. I don't know if we can mandate that they do it, but often they're willing, if there's a necessity, I would suspect they'd be capable of doing it.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments out there about this application?
I think, just to comment on Quan's comment, I agree that is a great idea and a noble sentiment. I don't think we could put it as a condition. Because it's not addressing an impact of the sign.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting. I was just out of curiosity if they would be willing to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Sounds good. Anything else? Okay, commissioners, are we ready for a motion? Staff has recommended that the sign be approved as presented.
This is Quan. I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit for an electronic message center sign at the McDonald's located at 320 West, 200 North.
So Quan has made the motion to approve the sign as presented. Is there a second?
This is Toby. I'll second that.
Second by Toby. Any other discussion by the commission? Okay, let's go ahead then with the vote. Quan, we'll start with you.
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Josh?
I'll probably vote aye, but just to clarify, are we saying that the existing ordinance addresses the dimming feature?
That's what
I
I
agree with that
understood.
comment.
That's what I understood Lyle to say, yeah. Is that
Okay,
right?
so aye.
Okay, we'll go on. Josh votes aye. Abby?
Aye.
I vote aye. Toby
Aye.
and Steve. Steve, you there? Lyle, I see your mouth moving, but I don't hear you.
Speaking with coworker.
There we go. Is Steve there?
He's muted.
Yeah,
We could unmute him and see if
There you
he'll-
go. There you go.
there you go, Steve.
Aye.
Aye, for your vote. Okay, the commission votes unanimously to approve the sign. All right, thank you very much. Move on to the next item. Let's see, the next item is a conditional use permit for a development sign for the Tyler Meadows Phase 2 subdivision located at 831 South Tyler Court. The applicant is Blake Smithing. We'll go to the staff.
Yes, sir. This one is west of the other Tyler Meadows. It is, I believe, 6 lots. It's located 831 South Tyler Court. They're going to put a development sign where that's what it looks like. It's on a 4x8 size standard plywood sheet. That's it where they've got it placed right now. It's not close to any ways or anything. It's out of the way of traffic. We see staff recommends a temporary sign to be allowed until the houses are complete and last one is sold.
Okay. All right, commissioners, any questions? No questions that I hear of. Let's go to the applicant if there's someone here, Blake Smithing, or someone here representing him. Anyone here? Lyle, are we seeing anybody? Or
I'm looking through the names. I don't see any that stand out for this particular item.
all right, this one's pretty straightforward. Let's go back to the commission then. Commissioners, any other questions or comments on this sign? If not, we're ready for a motion if someone's willing to make it. Staff is recommending that the sign be approved with a period of 1 year from date of approval for the sign to be left up or until all the lots are sold, whichever is shorter.
This is Toby. I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit for a development sign located at 831 South Tyler Court for the Tyler Meadows Phase 2 subdivision, with the recommendation that the sign shall be allowed to be for a period of 1 year from the date of approval or until the lots within the subdivision are sold, whichever is less.
All right, Toby's made a motion to approve the sign as noted. Is there a second?
This is Scott. I'll second.
Scott seconds. Any other discussion by the commission? All right, let's go ahead and vote. Scott, you're first.
Aye.
Aye by Scott. Josh?
Aye.
Abby?
Aye.
Wilf, chair votes aye. Toby?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
And Quan?
Aye.
All right, that's a unanimous vote. The sign is approved. Thank you very much. Let's go on to our next agenda item, which is, all right. Our next item is a conditional use permit for a 2-family dwelling at 932 Thornfield Road. Applicant is Micah Olson, and we'll begin with staff.
Yes, sir. She is anticipating buying this house and she would like to convert it into a duplex. Staff has looked 500 feet in a circle. We have found no other duplexes in that area. We're anticipating that she's gonna have enough parking for the cars. She's gonna have a basic 2-bedroom, bath, kitchen, family room on each level. So there's probably gonna be no more than 1 to 2 drivers per level. She is wanting to just make it comply with building code and everything to make a full-fledged duplex and bring it up to code. She'll do everything she needs to that way if the conditional use is granted.
All right. Dan, the ordinance requires 2 parking spaces per unit. Is that right? So they would need to have a total of 4?
Yes, sir. What we've looked at there is I was looking it over. She's got an RV court, RV parking pad. There's a trailer on there now. I believe it's going to be gone. So there's room for cars there staggered on an angle. She'll have a garage for parking 1 and then 1 up inside the driveway right behind the garage. It looks adequate to me for 4 cars. She's got room on the other side of her lot to always make additional parking. I believe she's good the way she's got it there. We did have one email showing a concern about that from one of the residents up there, but I think it's just because the trailer of the previous owner and everything's still there, that it doesn't look like there's going to be enough. But I think overall she does have plenty of parking, and I believe that it should work out for all our intended ordinances and meet everything we need to do.
Okay. All right, commissioners, questions?
So again, this is Quan. She is planning on having parking spaces on the other side, is that correct?
No, not unless we required it. She would like to just use what's existing there. She would technically need place for 4 cars as per our ordinance. And I
And
think
what's showing, is it adequate for 4 cars right now, Dan?
I believe so, because you have a garage for 1. You could park directly behind the garage. You have the RV park, and then there's plenty of parking on that RV park for 2 cars. There's adequate parking, yes, in my opinion.
Okay. Any other questions that the staff has, or I'm sorry, that the commission has of staff?
I have some comments, but I'm not sure if Wilf, are you going to see if the applicant's here or if there's other comments first? Okay, I'll wait.
First. Okay, let's go to the applicant. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Is it Makia Olson?
I think her name's Makia Olson.
Makia, thank you. All right, Makia Olson. Yes,
Kaya.
we're ready for, yeah.
It's Micaiah.
Makia, sorry about that.
No, you're okay. It happens all the time. I do, with the parking, if you don't feel like there's enough, then I had plans to bring it back in the backyard a little bit for that basement apartment. I did have a couple of questions about the, because I've read the ordinance and it wasn't real clear about utilities and things like that, as far as like what is required for, do I have to have separate water meters? Do I have to have separate furnaces? Like what exactly would I have to split?
Yeah, those questions I think will be answered by the building and engineering staff as they review your application, but they may be able, Dan or Lyle may be able to just tell you real quick right now what the requirements are there.
Okay.
Would you like to hear that right now?
Yes, if I can.
All right, you would be required to have separate HVAC systems. You're allowed to have the single water service. You're going to have a single lateral. You're not going to have separate laterals. You're not going to have separate water services. However, you could split the electrical services if you want, but it's not required. The only thing that's going to be required is you bring all the egress windows, smoke detectors, electrical, and fire separation between the units to meet building code. That's what would be required for your building permit once you get through this.
All right. Anything else you'd like to let us know about your idea? Any of the commissions have any questions of the applicant? Okay, not hearing anything.
Actually, this is Quan. Sorry about that. I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Hi, Makia. So again, what I see on Google Maps is it's a one-car garage. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And the standard is, let me just see where I just saw that. No more than 2 of the required parking stalls may be in tandem. And you, Makai, you said that you would open up the back for additional parking?
Like where the RV parking garage or parking stall, I would bring it back a little bit so it's closer to their entrance.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the Google picture from Google Maps, and I mean, it's yeah, you could technically fit in 4, but that would be pretty tight. And now you've got, you know, not just a single family, but 2 families, and obviously just want to be cognizant of your neighbors' issues that they brought up. So
it would not be like in the backyard. It would just be like further, like deeper back
on that side, right? Okay, where that trailer was.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question. So I don't know if the applicant saw this or if Lyle let them know, but we saw a photograph of the current number of cars that are parked. I don't know if it's a representative photograph of every day or what, but there was a number of cars parked on the, I think 2 on the street and I don't know, 3 in the driveway. Is the residence being used technically as a 2 dwelling unit already, and we're just bringing it up to get it officially with the conditional use permit, or how's it being used currently?
I don't own it. I'm purchasing it.
Do you know though? Is it being used as 2?
No, it's not. It's like grandparents and they have children and that live with them.
So just like a large
family.
Yeah. So there's 4 adults and 3 children that live there.
Okay.
If your purchase goes through, are the current residents going to move, and then you're going to get 2 new, 2 new tenants in these new units?
So my current plan is when they move, is I'm going to have roommates while I remodel the kitchen and living room area, and remodel it through the course of 6 months to a year, and then at that point get 2 families in there.
Okay.
Any other questions, Josh? Okay, any other questions from any of the commissioners? Let's see if there are any members of the public out there that wish to address this. Commissioners, we did get an email, or we got a message through the city with some objection to this proposal. You may recall getting that. Lyle also sent that to us because some of us had trouble opening that file, but we did see the pictures and the comments that were made with regard to that. Let's see if there's anybody else that's on our meeting online that would like to make any comments about this proposal. Lyle, are we seeing anybody, or Jordan, are we seeing anybody that's raising their hand and like to comment?
We do have Brian Black that has raised his hand, so we'll check in on that and see if that's been up for a bit, but just kind of waiting for the opportune moment. So here we go.
Okay, Mr. Black, go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, hear you now.
Okay, great. So I live on Thornfield. My wife and I have 4 children under 9 years old. And I want to voice my opposition to turning this into a duplex. The first reason is as soon as you put a duplex there, the house values will drop in the area. And I can say that most of our neighbors would not like that to happen. And the second reason is anytime you have a duplex or apartment or whatever the case is, you're more likely to have sex offenders on the street. And as a parent of young children, I don't feel comfortable having my kids play outside if there's sex offenders there. And it's just something I'm worried about because I see that a lot with duplexes and apartment complexes. So that's why I'm voicing my opposition.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make any comments?
We also have Miss Killian that is ready to talk here.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
George? Yeah, yes, go ahead.
All right, my wife's a realtor and she says that duplexes don't make values go down. Well, here, she can talk about it a little bit. She's got enough knowledge, but maybe there's something she doesn't know.
So we have a lot of homes in our area and our homes are valued at 600,000 plus. A lot of our neighbors are doing basically the same thing. Most of them are living in part of the home still though, so that does make it a little bit different. But I think if the homeowner, the person purchasing the home, is very cognizant of who she's got in there and strict with those rules and regulations, I don't see that would be a huge issue. Not the sex offender. You could have a sex offender living next door to you right now and maybe not know it. So I can see the concern in that, but at the same time, I don't know that it's something that should deter her ability to potentially improve her situation as well. But I do think that she should be very careful who she puts in the home for the neighbor's sake.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Thanks for that comment. Jordan, do we have anybody else who's looking to comment?
That looks like we are good.
Okay. Let's go back to the applicant. Micaiah, anything else you'd like to add or respond to on any of those comments?
Yeah, I mean, I am also concerned about that. I wouldn't want anybody just renting it. So the plan is to go through each applicant who does try to rent it and do those background checks. I already know that there's 4 sex offenders in a mile radius of there because I was very aware of that situation and want to make sure that it doesn't increase with the duplex.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much. Let's go back to the commissioners. Commissioners, let's have some discussion or any comments that you have.
Mr. Chair, this is Lyle Gibson with staff, just to interject. So it's been referenced multiple times, so I believe that covers it. Maybe just to clarify your direction, the one correspondence we did receive has been sent to and read and seen by the Planning Commission. Would you like any further reading on that or introduction of that was submitted?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it might be a good idea to maybe read that out. Lyle, if you have it there, you want to go ahead and read it out?
I do, if you'd like. So one moment. So this is regarding the 932 Thornfield Road. States, we have noticed that the commission has been asked to rezone the single family home at this address. We respectfully submit these objections to grant this permit based on these issues. The people have bought homes in this neighborhood because they trusted that it would remain a single family neighborhood. Like us, many have upgraded their homes with intentions of long-term occupancy, not for starter homes to move in for a few years or as investment properties to rent out. We plan on our children growing up here. Number 2, the traffic pattern is already experiencing more traffic use than the street was designed for, partly due to heavy use by school buses. Right now, it is in serious need of repair. Number 3, we have observed that the parking situation at this address is already inadequate. Adding another household at the same address would mean more cars. There's no way that more parking spaces could be made available. Number 4, to adjust the zoning for one homeowner would invite others with extra rooms to ask to be able to create a rental unit in their homes. There would be no way to legitimately refuse them a permit. And lastly, number 5, it says Kaysville's appeal as the hometown community that appeals to people buying homes here would be lost. We are asking that you reject this appeal for a rezone from Ashley Tanner Russell, Kyla Marie Bishop, Adam E. Russell, Brandon Bishop, at 921 and 897 Thornfield Road.
Okay, thank you, Lyle. Scott, it looked like you were going to have a comment just before we got Lyle back on.
Yeah, I was going to ask ask for a point of clarification about this and on the enforcement side. So does having the provision for 4 parking spaces preclude the city from being able to enforce that those cars are parked off street? You know, the front of that home has public parking the way any other homeowner does and has access to. I look at these things and try to think that, is it substantively different than a home of similar size and scale with 2 driving age parents and 4 driving age children,
right,
and living in the home that might cause the same type of parking issue? So while I feel for that issue and I understand it, I just wonder if having the ability to provide 4 parking spaces meets the ordinance, if there's nothing else that's really, we can condition above and beyond that.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Scott. And I, had that experience through the years where people have said that they, really object to what might happen with parking. But as you mentioned, there's nothing that precludes a large family from living in the home and having a number of drivers. This is part of the family. And the way the ordinances work is that it's a public street, so there really isn't any way to prevent people from parking on that street, as well, including, of course, the people that live there. And the whole idea behind having the 4 required parking spaces per ordinance is just to make sure that there is at least some level of off-street parking that's reasonable, that's there for the home, and that would be the case here.
This is Toby. I'd also like to make a comment or maybe clarification. I mean, the comment that was read off by Lyle mentioned that this was a rezone, but this is a conditional use permit, and so that's a difference. And so I think that we need to make sure we call out the difference between a conditional use permit and a rezone.
Good point. Thanks, Toby. That's correct. Any other comments from the commissioners?
I mean, I'll just follow up. I'll follow up on that comment from Toby and make a few other comments. And this might be kind of a shotgun approach of comments, but I want to just address some of the things that the neighbors had raised. And as we know, we hear these often. Number one is rentals. In Kaysville, we don't regulate rentals. We don't regulate whether a property owner can or cannot rent. And I suppose we recognize that means arguably, I think this is very debatable, but arguably, rentals do something to the neighborhood or the property values. I don't think so, but I think others can disagree with that. But we've made a decision in Kaysville from a policy standpoint to not regulate that. So that's the first thing. And then like Toby was alluding to, this is a conditional use permit. And that means we really don't have any discretion like we do with a rezone. We only have the only discretion we have is to say what are the impacts from the use and what are the conditions that we can impose. Right. And we can't go outside the bounds of that. We can't say like we do, like I say, with a rezone and make a policy decision. The other thing related to the comment that a neighbor made with respect to a rezone and this being a slippery slope or it, inviting other neighbors to do the same thing. again, it's not a rezone, but more specifically, duplexes are intentionally spread out by the ordinance. So I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, Lyle or Dan, it's 500 feet. So you cannot have another duplex within 500 feet of this one if it gets approved. So in many ways, whether we want this or not, our hands are tied as a commission. We just have to address the conditions. And in my opinion, the only real condition that the only real impact that we should be addressing, I think, is this parking / traffic issue. And again, I think that's a very small impact, but one comment that I would make, or suggestion that I would make, is as I look at the driveway, it's kind of a funky angle, and the commissioners will probably remember we addressed a similar concern on the recent duplex, single family converted to a duplex over on 200 North, just south of this property. Well, actually quite a way south, but it's off of 200 North, and it was right next to the corner there. And we addressed the parking issue with the driveway. So I wonder if we want to require a little bit bigger of a driveway instead of having such an angle on this driveway.
Just to clarify a little bit or take off on Josh's point with a conditional use, Josh is right. We really don't have the option of denying or not approving a conditional use unless we find that any of the impacts that we might identify cannot be reasonably mitigated. And with the things that we've talked about here tonight, there are a number of things that I don't believe that there's an impact. Some of the things that were mentioned, like being a rental, people that might live there, even the number of cars that might be there, is really not something that I think that would bring it into the category of being something that can't be reasonably mitigated. And in some cases, there's really no mitigation required because the impact is really no different than a single family home. So from that standpoint, I think Josh is right, and we need to be aware of that we really don't have the option of turning this down. The conditions that are recommended, and I think that we are looking at, are the 2 parking stalls per unit. So in other words, 4 total off-street parking stalls. And then of course, the requirements on meet all the building code requirements for separate units and the impact fees being paid. Beyond that, I don't know that we can do anything about any of the other things, and that they're really that different from what you would experience in single family home. Because, for example, any single family home could be rented as well.
Mr. Chair, this is Lyle again with staff. Just so that you're aware, shortly after I think we stopped with the last public comment, I have one other hand raised.
Okay.
If whenever you would like to, if you're interested in having that, we can allow them to speak.
Let's go ahead and do that now. Let's have that person speak.
Okay, so we've got Dustin Didrikson. You're live if you would like to say something.
Yeah, I live next door, if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
And it's just really great, safe neighborhood. And here I have 3 daughters too, and I just want to have a safe life with my family here too. And it would make it harder for us to sell our house in the future, I believe. Like it's previously stated, this area doesn't have any other rentals. It kind of would open the door, but that's all I really got to say.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your comment. Commissioners, back to you all. Any other comments or discussion?
I've got one more individual with the hand raised for this item as well, Mr. Chair.
Okay, let's go to that individual.
Okay, this is Brandon Bishop. One moment, Brandon, will I? Brandon, you are now. Okay, you're now live, Brandon, if you'd like to make a comment.
Yeah, I also live on Thornfield, and I am a realtor and I am an appraiser also. And I disagree with it hurting the value. I think it is going to hurt the value. Not only that, but it also makes it tougher to sell. But I know that's not your guys' concern right now. If you want to look at parking, though, I heard someone mention off-street parking as well, and that's not an option in the wintertime. So all those cars will have to be in that driveway. And unless you want to play Tetris every time, that's not adequate parking at all. Also, it sounded like when we heard from the applicant, she doesn't really, I don't know if she got quite the scope of everything it's going to take to actually turn this into a duplex, not just a, I don't know, a mother-in-law apartment. It's going to have, obviously the firewalls and all that. I don't know if she quite understood, but that's my comment. I'm definitely against it.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Bishop. Lyle, do we have anyone else?
I believe that's everybody for this one.
Okay, back to the commissioners.
I just have a quick question. So it's my understanding that Ms. Olson doesn't currently own the home. She's thinking of purchasing it. If she applies for this and then decides not to purchase it, does the ability to keep it as a duplex stay there, or is it voided after that?
It's a good question for staff. My understanding is that when someone does apply for a conditional use permit, it usually runs with the land, but Lyle, maybe you can enlighten us on that.
Sure. So the chair is correct. In this case, the planning commission, if approved, and with any conditions, however that's done, would run with the land. However, for it to be fully implemented, they would have to actually move forward and complete the building permit and inspection process within a year. So if this individual never proceeds with that, or no other owners or buyers choose not to do that, then it simply goes away. So just because the planning commission approved it, if they don't exercise that within a year's time, this will expire and it will remain a single family dwelling until somebody else applies, starts from the beginning in the future if they choose to.
Okay.
Okay. What else, commissioners? Any other comments?
I'll make a couple of comments, I guess, just briefly. As I read the standards that we have to apply when we are looking at conditions based on section 17-30-8, I don't necessarily, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't really even see that even if we agreed that this was going to reduce property values, which I think that's quite debatable. We could get appraisers or real estate agents that would go on both sides of that question, I think. So, but let's assume we agreed with that. I don't think we could deny it on that basis, and there really isn't a condition that we can impose. And then the other comment that I would make, just to address a recent comment from the neighbors and to sort of bookend something I already said, which is I don't think us approving this is going to open the door for others, because this ordinance that allows duplexes in a 500-foot radius in residential zones, Lyle, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know it's been in existence for at least 15 years, because it was when I bought my home, and it's probably been on that in our ordinances for much longer than that. So all of the neighbors around here had had this option for, let's say, 15 plus years, and this is the first one, because there's none others that are in 500 feet. So I'm not convinced by that argument personally, and I think we already addressed it in our ordinance, even if it was a persuasive argument.
Okay. Josh, I agree with you that property value is not a criterion in most ordinances. In fact, I can't even really think of any ordinance that has a property value as a criterion in it. So because anytime you do changes in land use with regulation, you affect property value one way or the other. And it's not a criterion that we are allowed to use in making these decisions. Any other comments? Are we ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion. Maybe I'll go out on a limb here. I'll make a motion that we approve a conditional use permit for the 2-family dwelling with the conditions outlined in the staff report, which is the building permit condition so that it's compliant with the duplex requirements, the impact fee condition that's in the staff report, and then adequate parking. And my condition would be that the parking, or that the driveway gets squared off so that there can be 4 cars parked off the street and nothing on the street during the winter, for example. So that's my motion.
So Josh, well, first of all, let me see if there's a second to that. Is there a second to Josh's motion?
Abby, I'll second that.
Abby seconds that. Okay, Josh, the question I have for you is, so are you saying that to like just square off the driveway all the way down and make the curb cut larger out to the street?
Yes.
Lyle, do we have, or Dan, do we have a maximum curb cut size that's allowed in our regulations in the city, or are we okay in expanding the size?
We do have a maximum that they'll be well within that. It's 40 feet width, so they'll be well within that, I believe, for a 2-car width, even 3-car.
Okay, so so that requirement could hold that they need to expand the size of that curb cut to square off the driveway. Okay. Any other discussion by the commissioners about this motion? Hearing none, let's go to the vote. Josh, you're first.
Aye.
Abby?
Aye.
Chairman Wilks votes aye. Toby?
Aye.
Steve? Did we lose Steve? Steve's still there? We'll come back to Steve in a moment. Quan?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
And is Steve there? May have lost Steve.
Looking for Mr. Chair. I do not see him on currently, so.
All right, well, then we'll go with who we've got on, and we have the adequate number of votes, and that vote is unanimous. So the conditional use permit is approved with the conditions as noted in the motion. All right, thank you very much. And thank you all for your comments. We appreciate them. All right, next item on the agenda is.
I have a quick question if I can ask.
Oh,
Is that
yes.
okay?
Makai, yes.
Who is can I get a copy of the approval? And then who is my point of contact to just like go over that curb cut and what the driveway needs to look like?
Lyle?
Yeah, so to respond to that for you, Mrs. Olson, we'll work with you here at staff. So if you'll coordinate with myself, Jessica in our office, we will look over your site plan to make sure that you've met the conditions requested by the Planning Commission. And then we'll double check that again as well. So when you go through the building permit process, our building official, and again, we can help you coordinate with them. We'll help you understand the requirements, what plan details and specs they need for that review. And we can walk you through that process.
Awesome. And then one other question, you made it a point to say that it's a building, a conditional use, not a building rezone. How long is the conditional use good for?
So once this is implemented, it runs with the property. So it does not expire so long as you move forward and implement it within a year.
Okay.
And you continue to comply with the provisions, the conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Our next item on the agenda is a public hearing and a request for a rezone of 0.39 acres at 890 to 914 East, 200 North from the R2 1 and 2 family residential zone to the RM multifamily residential zone. The applicant and owner is Eric Orton, and we will turn first to the staff. Lyle, we got you.
All right, sorry about that wait.
There we go. Okay.
Takes a while to hover over things, I guess. Yeah, so just as introduced by the chair, public hearing on this one, just as a reminder, so I'll get
Right.
into it. The property includes 2 specific addresses off of 200 North. So currently they are 2 separate lots. You can see it on the south side of the road there near the Hayes Creek irrigation pond. Currently the property is in an R2. That's a single 2-family dwelling zoning district. And so each one of those lots actually already has a 2-family dwelling on it. So there are already 4 total units. I'll actually go back to that. So here's what's on site today. You can see one of the homes, and they're essentially mirror duplicate dwellings, 4 units total, 2 and 2. What the applicant and property owner is hoping to do is to add 2 more units to his properties. So as we've discussed that as staff and reviewed the options of how that might be accommodated, it was determined that a different zoning designation would be necessary. So for that purpose, they've suggested the RM zone. What he's hoping to do, and the concept that I'll show in a second is proposing, is actually to do kind of an addition to connect the 2 buildings together and fill the gap, so to speak, on one of them and extend the other. So it would become one large 6-plex. So 6 total units on the total property is the current concept of how they anticipate utilizing the zoning district if granted. So the ultimately what we would do to accommodate that is we would have to go through a lot consolidation process that we would deal with internally if the zoning district is granted. It's on 0.39 acres of property, so you got the 6 total units on a little less than ½ acre, just to give you a kind of a taste of how that would sit on a density perspective. And again, as a rezone, this is one where the commission is looking to make a recommendation to the city council as a legislative action as to how appropriate you feel this is for the specific property, and based on the specifics of that site and its surroundings and the understanding of the general plan. And we provided for you the language of the general plan within your staff report for your consideration, which primarily speaks to similar densities, but additional density along major streets. I will note we've had, and again, as we get the public comment, I'd be happy to pull it up and read it. I believe it was one correspondence that was sent to the Planning Commission ahead of this meeting that essentially supported this request. But again, at public comment time, I'd be happy to go over the details of that at the request of the chair. With that, I'll close my comments.
All right. Yeah, we'll maybe have you read that when we get to some of the comments that Lyle. All right. Any questions of the staff, commissioners?
Lyle, what are the parking considerations? And then also it's on 200 North. There's always concern with the increasing traffic out there.
Sure. So the current concept, and I believe the applicant is available that could maybe speak further to it. So as we allow them time to speak, but you can see on the concept plan, the parking is essentially right off of 200 North Street in the gray area on this exhibit. So the requirement would essentially be, I think once you get to a 6-plex, I'll double check it for you before we leave, but I think it's only 1.5 stalls per unit in the RM zone with these densities. And so they can speak to it further, how many they think would fit there. If you look at the map, if I can zoom in for you, 200 North on that side of the road is not completely improved. So there's no curb and gutter to my recollection. So essentially the entire frontage of the property becomes an access to come in for parking under the current circumstances. And it would all be located between the street and the homes and the proposed concept.
So the idea would basically that the vehicles would pull off of 200 North onto the privately owned property in the front, and that would be the parking.
That's correct.
Okay.
I think that alleviates.
Okay. Steve, are you still commenting or?
No, it's sorry. I think that alleviates any concern. I mean, just making sure that we have access and there's a safe condition. Conditions are safe for getting onto 200.
Okay. Other questions, comments from the commissioners? All right, hearing none. Yeah, nope, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I guess this has probably been addressed somewhat, but well, you know, I'll make this after, if it hasn't been addressed or if it doesn't come up, I'll make it after the public hearing.
All right. Anybody else? All right, this is public. Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry,
Toby.
this is Toby. I just wanted to make sure, is the applicant here? Because, I mean, there's a couple of questions I'd like to ask, but if the applicant's not here, maybe we could ask the staff if they know how to answer the question.
Yeah, we are.
Applicants
We're ready to go to the applicant. Go ahead, Lyle.
Just confirming the applicant is here when you're ready to hear from them.
Okay. Any other questions from commissioners of the staff before we turn to the applicant? Okay, let's go ahead and go to the applicant. And I don't know, Lyle or Jordan, can you bring Mr. Orton?
How about now?
Yep, we got you now.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate the chance for you to consider this. I don't know if you want me to answer questions or do you want me to give a little spiel or?
If you've got something you'd like to tell us about, please go ahead, and then the commission may ask you some questions.
That'd be great. All I wanted to say was that I think this does correlate with the city's plan to put higher density housing on a pretty an arterial road close to Highway 89 on the east side of town for moderate income people. I think it coordinates well with that. So anyway, that's all.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, any questions of the applicant?
Yeah. Oh,
sorry, Steve, you can go ahead.
Mr. Horton, what is your average rent rate for your units now? What do you anticipate in the future?
I have one at $725 a month. He's been there for probably 28 years.
Okay.
Lloyd Brewer, if you know who he is.
I don't.
And then we just rented some out, a unit that we just updated a bit at $950. So we're around 800, 8.5 usually, up to 9.5.
Okay. For the county, that's very affordable.
Yeah.
I forget, is this a 1 or 2 bedroom again, guys? Oh,
I'm sorry, they're all 2 bedrooms. And the new ones would be 2 bedrooms as well. They would just have another bath and be a little larger bedrooms. We want to keep them 2 bedrooms because people who usually rent from us are newlyweds that are going to school. So by the time they fill 2 bedrooms, it's time for them to move out, and they've usually graduated and start their starter home. So we like the 2-bedroom idea.
When do you anticipate being able to start construction based on approvals?
I'm anticipating late summer.
Okay.
Toby, did you have a question?
No, Steve addressed my question, so I'm fine.
Okay, Josh, did you have something, or you want to wait till after the public comment?
Yeah, I can wait.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other commissioners have any questions of the applicant, of Mr. Orton? Okay, this is a public hearing. So we are going to open the public hearing now and allow all of those who have desire or would like to make a comment with regard to this application to go ahead and speak. So I'll go now to the staff, to Lyle and Jordan, and have them indicate to us who may be there raising hands and wishing to comment.
Currently, Mr. Chair, I do not see any other hands raised from the attendees of the meeting to make comment on this. But I do have ready, should you wish to read the email correspondence that was set ahead of the meeting that I am aware of regarding this item.
Yeah, let's go ahead and have you read that.
Okay, so this came from Thomas Wood at 901 Meadowlark Drive. And I'm only going to read a portion of his comments. A portion of it was related to another item. So that which is applicable towards this. Hopefully I get right. Just says, I'm also writing in favor of the rezoning of approximately 0.39 acres of property at 890 to 914 East, 200 North from the R2 to RM zoning district. Because one, it is better dispersed throughout the city, and two, it is located on an arterial street. And finally, three, there's no loss of commercially zoned land. And those are his comments that I think are pertinent to this specific issue. Otherwise, I still don't see any hands raised or comments from the public.
All right. Okay. We'll give it maybe just a minute to see. And if there's none, then let's go ahead and we will close the public hearing. And we will bring the discussion back now to the commission. I'm assuming, Mr. Orton, do you have any other comments you wish to make first?
No, there's nothing I know of that's aching to be said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, then let's go to the commissioners for discussion and or then a motion. Commissioners?
I had a question if I could.
Yep, go ahead, Scott.
So Lyle, this is an existing improved area. As you go west, it looks like the sidewalk stops, according to what I could see on the Google Maps, at about the 650 East block. So it's a few blocks west of here. But when you do a lot line adjustment or this is the subdividing line between the two lots, creating one lot. Do you put in place an improvement agreement, or would the expectation be that 200 North for the frontage of these lots be improved with the remainder of the asphalt that would be needed for the cross section of the road, any sort of hard stop, sidewalk, curb, gutter? And then just having driven past there, I think that you're going to get a number of improvements out in the front of these homes that are currently green space. So are you able to maintain some, grassy open area that the proposed subdivision there, or site plan doesn't really show how the green space on the front of the lot, the usable green space, because that hill drops off the back. So two questions. One is, do we require them to improve 200 North? And does the green space meet what you would expect for the ordinance in this case?
Good question, Scott. We'll turn to Lyle on that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to Commissioner Hess's question, I do not believe for the lot consolidation process that the improvements would be mandated. So this could be a time where the commission could request that as a condition of the rezone. I may be incorrect on quoting the ordinance there, but generally you're correct when we're doing a true on subdivision and creating additional lots and improving additional property. We would require exactly that, street improvements be completed. I would suspect in this case, rather than improvements kind of all alone in that little section, we would take kind of a fee in lieu or put together an agreement that they be responsible for their share when the city's ready to improve that section of the road. However, I'm not sure that's applicable through the lot consolidation process that we have on ordinance. So if that's of interest to the commission, you may wish to make that a recommendation to the council for their consideration before they grant the rezone. The second portion of the question, I believe, was regarding the green space and landscaping. The ordinance is pretty generic, I guess. It does regulate some multifamily dwellings, but it's more of a percentage game and a 10% landscape requirement, less of where that's located. And so that may be something that's encouraged by the commission, but otherwise on our base ordinances, there would not be much that we would on this have concern that it's in violation of, nor that we would expect based on the specifics that it alludes to within ordinance.
All right. Yeah, I don't know if you've done the calculation, Lyle. Does it? I mean, it looks like it would easily meet the 10% landscaping requirement with the green area that's shown.
Yeah, once you hit the rear yard, you're going to well exceed that 10% with the question, I think, on this one, even with the additional hardscape improvements of an addition and renovation.
Scott, are you interested in seeing a requirement or a recommendation put into the rezone that the street improvements be installed across the front of this?
I am fine with, I'm totally fine with an improvement agreement, but I would make a recommendation that the city secure an improvement agreement along with this rezone, so that at whatever time the city's capital facility plan indicates widening of 200 North.
Oh, I see.
Owner pays their fair share at that time.
I see. Okay. So you're saying in the eventuality of future improvements to 200 North.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense than requiring 200 feet of, or so.
Yeah.
200 feet of floating improvements.
Yeah.
But I do think it would be appropriate to require the improvement agreement.
Okay, good point. All right. Anything else, commissioners? Any other comments?
I agree with Scott's comment on the improvements. I don't know that we need to require them now, but I agree that these properties need to, pay their share once it gets widened. Because if we did require it now, it would just be this island of sidewalk and curb and gutter in a sea of a lack of those things. But following up or piggybacking on that point, Lyle, the way that I'm not clear in my mind how the parking will work once the full improvements are installed, because right now it looks like there's a big gravel portion in front of these units that is functionally used for parking. But once 200 North is widened, all of that parking goes away other than just being on street. And so it seems like we would need to require how many curb cuts, how big are these curb cuts, how big are the driveways? That's not clear to me, because the proposal drawing just shows this massive swath of gray parking. And it looks to me like that can't all be parking, but I guess maybe I don't know the answer to that. Can it all be parking, or will there be multiple curb cuts?
You mean once 200 North is improved, with Josh?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good question.
So my answer to that, just at least based on the concept, and remember the comment from the previous application we dealt with, is there's a maximum driveway width. So there would probably be multiple curb cuts rather than one extremely long continuous curb cut with improvements. And likely that may require some alteration to the final site details. So we've not in full detail worked on all the site plan and improvements and what would be required on this one. I suspect it will have to alter some to accommodate the parking and how that would work with driveways in that event.
So that could be worked out.
So then,
go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, my suggestion, maybe what you were going to say, Wilf, is that oftentimes you can have staff, I'm sure, is well versed in this more than me, but you can have future improvements of how it's going to look once 200 North is fully improved. I would just suggest that maybe we talk about that right now in part of the approval. Maybe if there's disagreement that Scott's referencing that we impose, at the end of the day, somehow that be worked out so that once 200 North is fully developed, we already know what it's going to look like and we're comfortable with it looking the way it's going to look.
Okay. All right. That's a good suggestion. Other commissioners?
Just one other comment, and that's just that regarding what the total width of 200 North will be in the future. This every land use choice that we're approving or making has with it, you know, the inability to do something else in the future, you're going to take those homes out. So I would be interested if the drawing as shown is completely outside of the future right-of-way width of 200 north, and that there's actually still going to be a no man's land of gravel between the indicated parking area, which is 30 feet off the face of the structure, before the actual asphalt begins, which would be kind of north of that gray line, or where we understand where the property line is versus the future right-of-way of the road, and make sure that we're not approving something that parking is sitting in potential future road right-of-way.
I think that's something we could mention as a recommendation in that improvement agreement. Okay, any other comments?
Yeah, this is Quan. Besides all the details, which is great, in spirit, I like the plan. It addresses general plan, SB 34, et cetera. And then, I mean, we're basically not asking to develop something new in this area, just adding to existing, but I like it.
Yeah, to Quan's comment, I find myself looking at this and thinking, this seems like an appropriate location. And there are already two duplexes there. We're adding 2 additional units, which does not seem to be that great of an impact. And certainly seems to be something I think that would be of use in the community, particularly at a location like this, which is some vacant property nearby, some higher density development just to the east of it, and with the road as it is nearby. Other comments? Okay, anyone ready to make a motion?
I'll try this motion out. Make a motion to approve a rezone request from R2 to RM located at 890 to 914 East, 200 North, with the added condition that the property owner obtain or have an approved improvement agreement for such time that 200 North is approved, along with assuring the city that the parking will be located outside of the future right-of-way of a widened 200 North.
All right. So Scott's made a motion to recommend to the city council approval of the rezone, along with the recommendation for an improvement agreement that would look at the improvements to be along there as appropriate when 200 North is widened and improved, and that the basically don't wind up with a gravel strip between the property and 200 North. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll make a second.
Steve seconds that motion. Any other discussion by the commission? All right, let's go ahead and vote then. Abby, I think you're first.
Aye.
Chair Wilf votes aye. Toby?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Juan?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
And Josh?
Aye.
All right, unanimous vote in favor. The recommendation for rezoning is thus forwarded on to the city council. Thank you very much. Now, our next item is another rezone. This is for a rezone of 1.17 acres at 650 North Main Street from the GC General Commercial Zone to the RM Residential Zone. Let's see. And well, let's go ahead. Let's see. I'm trying to get to the right place on my Dropbox. Hang on just a second here, folks. Here we go. The applicant is Destination Homes. So with that, let's turn to the staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the introduction. So the property corner here that you can see on the map is right at the hard corner of Mutton Hollow and Main Street. The property, again, currently sits in the General Commercial Zoning District. To give some context, the shopping center just next door on the street and just across the street. Recognize the farm where we all love to get our corn. And the applicant, Destination Homes, has been under contract with the property owner, put together a concept that would be different than the commercial use. You can see the red on the zoning map with the commercial around it. But you also see in the bright yellow other multifamily residential properties in close proximity, including the adjacent property to the east. And they're requesting the zone to accommodate what you can see here is a townhome residential style development. I do see that there's representation from the applicant on with us this evening, so I'll let them maybe speak more to their project. And I'll cut my comments a little bit short on that. But again, we're looking at the corner property. My notes here. Roughly 1.1 acres of property. And the RM zone allows roughly 15.5 units per acre. And so what they're seeking, skipping ahead a few, would actually put in as many as, I think it was, or we all have this technology. I think it's 16 units total there in the top right corner under the residential development. And it shows homes that kind of face the street with the parking on the center. And again, I'll let the applicant speak more to the product and the concept. So what we're looking at here is, just as we did with the last one, zone use. It's a legislative decision. Here we're looking for a recommendation from the Planning Commission to forward to the City Council, who will make the final decision. Is this the right type of use for the property? So currently the commercial district essentially does not allow housing. This would eliminate the commercial uses on the property and put it into that housing component. The specifics of this development, in staff's opinion, we generally don't give a recommendation on the rezone. Again, it's subject to your feelings on, is this a good spot for it? How does it work with the general plan, which states for housing east of I-15, you'd have 0 to 5 units per acre with some higher density housing. In this particular case, you've got a up there on Main Street, which is and Mutton Hollow, streets within the community. But the recommendation from staff deals more with if you're inclined to recommend approval of this proposal and you want to ensure that it looks something like the concept that you had before you this evening, would be that to have us work with the applicant to get a development agreement in place that would ensure that type or that quality of development. And it may have other suggestions or changes from the commission that you would forward along to the City Council. And other times we've done that, again, if you're inclined to have residential and it's not the commission's opinion that the development agreement is needed, or you trust the council to work through those terms, you can either table this to see the agreement or forward a recommendation and have the City Council look at an agreement. If, again, you're inclined to pursue forward with that. I think I'll leave my comments at that for now. I'll be happy to take any questions of the commission. And again, remind you, it looks like the applicant is available to discuss further their presentation and concept.
All right. Lyle, is Destination Homes the current owner, or is there another owner on the property right now?
Yes, my understanding is they're not the current owner, but they have it under contract. The owner of the property has had it for some time, and they've had it listed for a while. And I think this is just another user that's interested in moving forward with the purchase if they're what they desire.
Okay. Any other questions of staff by the commission members? All right, and let's turn to, oh, do we have somebody? Nope. Okay, let's go ahead and turn to the applicant.
Bear with me, Mr. Warnick. I'll get you here in a second. Okay, Mr. Warnick, I've got you. I assume you're the representative for this one. You're live if you have any comments to share.
We got anybody there? Or I'm not hearing anyone.
Okay, here he
Lila-
goes. He
we
is
got-
trying to log on, it looks like, so here we go.
Okay.
You are, I believe, live, Mr. Warnick, and it's your turn to speak.
Does he have his mic muted?
Hello?
There we go.
That's yeah, sorry. This is I've been doing this quite a long time on Zoom, so I apologize for that little disruption there. But yeah, Lyle, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a pleasure to be before you guys today. It's an interesting time that I'm here before you live in the basement. As Destination Homes land representative, we're excited for the idea of this project. If you recall, north of this on Main Street as well is our former Kays Landing project that is very similar architecture to this. We feel that the area is that this would be a good use for it, considering the RM that surrounds this area. In our opinion, we don't foresee commercial coming here this far down from kind of the city center. So this was an idea that we had to try to help bring that community up down there and give some affordable housing. We've seen quite an increase in demand for our multifamily project, and these homes with pre-COVID-19, these townhomes were becoming starter homes. We have a very similar project in Layton right now that these are selling for about $250 to $300. And it's something that we have had very high demand for, and we feel would be very appropriate for this area. And with that, we're asking for you guys to recommend the rezone.
All right. Any questions of Mr. Warnick by the commissioners?
Mr. Warnick, you're aware of the uses directly behind you. Are you worried about that affecting, and have you talked to the landowners directly behind you? I just want to make sure you're aware that safe harbors directly behind your property there.
Yes, we are aware of the surrounding uses. We have not had contact with the surrounding owners yet, but part of the design was intended for that, keeping all those in mind and trying to face everything out to kind of have almost like a cottage court feel.
Okay.
So with the intended use for the fencing and everything that we'll do, similar to Kays Landing, we feel that we're adequately, I guess, prepared for the uses going in.
You feel you can buffer that along that edge so that your community will be buffered from that?
We do. Yes, like I said, very similar to Kays Landing.
Okay.
We will build that up, landscape it, and fence it, and to give that adequate buffer for that bus stop that's also in the front.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
This is Quan. How much did you say you were expecting these townhomes to sell for?
Quan, right now, this similar product in Layton up off of Antelope is selling $250 to $300 right now, starting.
Okay.
So I would expect that we would be at least that price point here. Hopefully, when the economy gets ramped back up.
Okay. And on average, let me see. These are. I apologize. I'm just trying to catch up on the reading. 2 or 3 bedrooms?
Yes, they're all 2 or 3 bedrooms. These are our larger townhome units, and they're all 2-car garages.
Great, thank you.
This is Toby. Has there been any considerations for what impacts there will be on the traffic? I mean, I do live in this area, and it is very difficult to make a left-hand turn from Mutton Hollow onto 200 North during rush hour. And the trees that look like are in the park strips would make it the visibility harder to see. And so that would be my concern, that the current landscaping would actually negatively impact the site, be able to see to make a left-hand turn, especially with the traffic being very bad during rush hour.
Yeah, Toby, that's a very good point. Yeah, we'd have to make sure that site triangle is observed there on the corner of Mutton Hollow and Main. from our demographics that we've looked on this, that we, in the area, we actually think that most of the people exiting there for that very reason would do a right-hand turn off of Mutton Hollow and go up to the Layton Parkway interchange. But yes, that is one of the reasons why we wanted to front off to have our access on Mutton Hollow rather than on Main.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thanks, Mr. Warnock. We may have you come back up. We are now going to open the public hearing. This is a public hearing, this is being a recommendation on a rezone. And so with that, anyone who is interested to speak is welcome to give us their comments. I think we've also had another email on this one, so we'll have Lyle indicate that to us here shortly as well. Lyle, do we have anybody raising hands and wishing to speak?
Yeah, currently, Mr. Chair, I see no hands raised, so I don't know if you want to give it 30 seconds. I'll let you know if somebody does. Otherwise,
And
I
while
do.
we're waiting, why don't you go ahead and read that email for us? And if there's anyone out there interested in speaking, why don't you go ahead and indicate on your Zoom screen, raise your hand that you would like to speak. And in the meantime, Lyle, go ahead and read that email for us.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So again, this is from Thomas Wood at 901 Meadowlark Drive, and states, I'm writing to express my opposition to the rezoning of approximately 1.17 acres of property at approximately 650 North Main Street from the general commercial zoning district to the RM residential multifamily zoning district. I oppose the rezone for the following reasons. Number one, according to the general plan adopted by the City Council on November 21, 2019, housing section paragraph B, which states, multiple unit housing should consist mostly of duplexes, 2-unit structures, and some 3 to 6 unit structures dispersed throughout the city. A quick review of the city zoning map will show that the multiple unit housing is not dispersed throughout the city, but concentrated within 1/2 mile of this property. Over 300 units of multifamily in R4 zoning. Item 2, Kaysville City has very few general commercial zones remaining, and existing commercial zones should be maintained unless rare and unusual circumstances exist. Number 3, a previous request for rezoning along Main Street, approximately 500 to 600 South Main, from commercial to multifamily was denied by the commission only a year ago. As a previous commissioner and proponent of multifamily housing, I applaud the desire to build more multifamily units in Kaysville, but oppose the choice of this location. That closes his remarks.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Anyone indicating they wish to speak, Lyle?
I still see no hands raised. I'll probably ask just other staff. Heather, I don't know if you'll be able to see. Are you aware of any other correspondence on this? She'll text me or something if there is others, but currently I see no other public comment for this item.
Okay. Let's give it just a second. Okay, well, let's go ahead and close the public hearing then. And Mr. Warnock, anything you would like to add before we then have the discussion amongst the Planning Commission on this?
Just, I consider us a hometown builder. I personally live here in Kaysville. Five of the 6 of kind of the executive team at Destination live in Kaysville. And we want to see nothing more than also some successful retail along Main Street. I understand when people hear townhomes, they kind of maybe get a little bit scared, but I think when people see our product and see the kind of quality that we personally bring to the table, that in the end everybody's proud of the product and what went in. So we did something similar in Layton. It was a commercial shopping center that had not had any building on it, and it's been very successful, and Layton is very proud of that one as well. So with that, we're excited to kind of get moving if we can.
Where's that located in Layton, Mr. Warnick?
It's off Antelope, right up behind David's Bridal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know where you mean. Okay. All right. Anything else? Anyone, Lyle, anybody else?
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, it looks like there's nobody that is participating with us live that has a comment. But I was just made aware the commission was sent an email at 7:01. So not one previous to the meeting, but I have that available. I can read with you.
Yeah, why don't you? Yeah, go ahead and share that with us.
Okay. So from Norita Barrios at 766 North Stone Lane, Stony Lane, I think you say. Her comments state, I do not oppose Destination Homes' request to rezone Main and Mutton Hollow, but as a neighbor, I am concerned about the use already of Mutton Hollow as a thoroughfare, and the street is not in very good condition. Multi-units will only add to the problem. Please keep the number of units to an absolute minimum with planned green space for families to play with their children and ample parking. At least one parking space per each bedroom plus guest parking. Thank you for your considerations. S. Norita Barrios.
Okay, thanks very much. All right, if we have no one else, then I think we will turn now to discussion by the commission. Commissioners, what comments?
Well, if I have a, I have a couple of comments that I just would like to make about the project and my feelings about them. So I know that we as a community always lament losing commercial space, but you know, I've lived in this area for my whole life, and more specifically in Kaysville in this area of Layton for the last 20 years, and that has always been vacant. I think that if it were commercially viable, it would have commercial on it. And it's one of those cases I feel like where the added number of rooftops might actually bring commercial viability to the properties that surround it, and would certainly help the existing commercial buildings that are in the strip building that are just to the south of this. But in the face of increased number of internet sales in our cities, decrease in the number of strip commercial viability areas, I support this. It's also on a major transit connection with 470 that runs along this route. So there's a number of reasons that it makes sense, even in light of there being maybe a lot of similar type of townhome or affordable projects or multifamily projects along the same corridor. There's kind of a reason for that, and I think it's because locationally they make a lot of sense. So just personally, I don't really have a lot of other comments, but I'm in support of the project.
Yeah. Okay. No, good comments. Thanks, Scott.
So, Wilf, if I can add in, I agree with what Commissioner Hess has said. I also think that as I've lived here for over 10 years, I mean, that's been vacant. I think sometimes you got to go to the dance with who brung you, and sometimes it's not the use. The commercial use is not always viable, but it also having housetops helps your commercial use in the future. And it's that you have to weigh those uses, and you don't want to give up commercial use, but sometimes commercial use isn't viable. So I think we have to weigh that also in this term. But also it's on a transit line, as Scott mentioned, and I think it would make sense in an area like this within the context of a rezone. So those are my comments, and I think it would fit, and the parking fits, or the traffic fits also for the use.
Okay.
My comments would be that when we were debating what the general plan would be, I remember when Andy Thompson, our former city engineer, made a plea that we not entertain doing mixed use along 200 North because we would lose commercial property. And so I think that I'm kind of leaning towards that thought that even though the product looks really good, I mean, from the renderings they've shown here from Destination Homes, it looks like it'd be a nice development. I think I would say that would be, I would not want to lose the commercial property. Also to think about this, that, just up the street, there's was a development a few years back that the community opposed. And after that, there was another property that was posed to rezone to R2. And that was actually, there was put a development agreement on it to limit the number of units. And that was like as a, like to mitigate the concerns of the community. And so, I think that the city council approved that limitation on the number of units at that time. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that the city council has recognized that this area is where all the density is at. And, I'm a proponent for multifamily housing. Don't get me wrong, but I think it has to be in the right place. And I think that Tom Wood, the person that we read out his comments, that is a legitimate concern. This is where all that housing is. And so I think if we're going to get serious about dispersing this type of housing throughout the community, I would recommend that we reject this rezone and then try to get this housing someplace else. I think I wish we could have got something like this by Smith's on the east or west of I-15. This would have been perfect, like there. So that's my comments.
I have some comments.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
I'll address the commercial thing first, I guess. I confess that I have evolved on this question. Some on the commission may remember I've taken a position before, which is similar to, say, the one that from the letter from Tom Wood, which is we don't want to lose commercial. I think I mentioned some comments like that about the Boondocks, property south of Boondocks, but I evolved on that. I mentioned similar comments about the loss of commercial out at 200 North and Angel. But the way I've evolved is this: all commercial is not created equal. And saving commercial for the sake of saving commercial isn't necessarily a wise choice. Good commercial should be saved. I think across the street from this, that pie-shaped farm that may be a farm for the rest of all of our lives, or it may not, is commercial that should be saved. But this property, really all that could go there commercially is maybe a retail type use, I think, possibly an office, but there is some of that around there. And I don't know the lease rates, but my guess is the lease rates aren't phenomenal. Otherwise, this property would have been purchased a long time ago. And I agree. In my recollection, this property has been vacant ever since Tasty's came in, and that's when I was in high school. And I'm not as young probably as I look, but so I don't think that this has to be saved necessarily, I guess is a long way of saying that. And the concerns that I have, having said that, it would relate probably most to traffic. And I'm not saying that this is a non-starter because it's going to add too much traffic. I'm just saying we need more data or more information. I would like to see more information about this. I suspect that both Mutton Hollow and 200 North have more than adequate capacity, and that their service levels, even at rush hour on Mutton Hollow, the service level is probably adequate. But we just need that information, I think, to make a wise decision, or at least we should advise the council to have that information before they make a decision.
Yeah, on the traffic part of that, Josh, I would agree with you. I think there's really, when you look at it, there's really plenty of capacity still. Gets a little busy at times, and once it gets to a point where it's, pretty busy, there'll probably be a light there. There'll be a signal which will then address that. So, yeah.
This is Quan. So I also live right down the street, and yep, it is definitely the street, as Commissioner Barr said. It's in pretty bad condition. I'm kind of torn because on one hand, I do like the idea of this project. It hits a lot of the wickets that we've been looking for. Again, it's on the main artery. The price point's decent. But then again, Commissioner Bars did bring up the fact that maybe we should save some property, but then, Vice Chair brought up a good point, what really could go in there. So I like the look of the project, and yes, it is an eyesore every time I drive down there and make that left turn. So I like the project, so changed my mind.
Okay.
Can I add one more thing that I was going to say?
Yeah, please.
The comment about, I mean, this is a legitimate concern actually of mine, or at least something that we all should address in our own minds, is in our general plan, it does say that multifamily should be spread out throughout the city. And I think we could probably all agree that this area bears a higher burden of that, or if not higher, the highest burden in the city of multifamily. But that cuts both ways, because on one hand, yeah, we want it spread out, but as we all know, the rest of Kaysville doesn't want it in their backyard, so put it over here. And then on the other hand, the whole notion of Euclidean zoning, if that's what I think it's called, is we segregate like uses. So keeping multifamily around multifamily is actually somewhat in line with proper zoning. So long as the infrastructure can handle it. And I think the infrastructure here could probably handle it, and therefore keeping multifamily residential where other multifamily residential makes sense to me.
Okay.
Josh, Justice Sutherland is smiling at you. So, and I'll just, he's the only Utah to ever been on the Supreme Court, by the way. And he passed the Euclidean. The Euclidean zoning came from his ruling. But no, I agree with you. I think the other issue is sometimes it comes down to capacity for, and I know this from having worked in multiple cities, but I know on the west side of I-15, we have a capacity issue with our sewer district. On the east side of I-15, it comes down to capacity. I know that there were some zoning issues on property recently over here on the east side, on the west side, where they wanted to do higher density, and the sewer district has flatly said we don't have capacity for it. So I think we need to be cognizant of that issue. Also, there's capacity issues with our service providers outside of the city. We may like it, but sometimes we can't zone for it simply because they can't handle the added volume for whatever reason over on that side of the freeway.
The comment I would make to that is, I mean, I generally agree. I think, in my opinion, that the most important infrastructure capacity is the roads, because I think the utilities are likely up to par, like adequate, capacity. But if they're not, then destination will have to bring them up to capacity, and I'm guessing that they could do that. Now, you might be saying, Steve, that in your example, that there really wasn't a way to bring them up to capacity, no matter the cost. I think that's probably an anomaly if that were the case. I think destination would just have to realize, as I'm sure they already do, that if there isn't adequate capacity in the utilities, they're going to have to bring them up to capacity to accommodate their project. So the road is the more important one in my mind, and I think it's adequate. I just am saying we should get that information.
Yeah, I think so. I would agree. I think it is adequate. I mean, you really look at it, and it's not that bad.
Yeah.
Not something that couldn't be fixed.
Well, and if we want to hearken to something that Andy Thompson said as well, and you can agree or disagree with this. I think it's debatable, but he would say something along the lines of, don't create a permanent solution for a temporary problem, and that being left-hand turn, for example, on Mutton Hollow at rush hour.
Yeah,
that might be bad, but it will only be bad for 30 minutes or something.
Right.
But that's something we have to be aware of. If that's an important consideration, then something that one of us or some of us might not like, and we say we deny it on that basis. But we have to be aware of it.
Yeah, good point. Toby, when you made your comments about the commercial, were you referencing the earlier vote that the city council made in this area?
No, I was there was a duplex that, or actually like so there's the Crimson Court, which is right kind of in the middle, like right, oh, you're just right, the cursor was right by it, right there. That is
right.
Crimson Court. Crimson
Right.
Court had 28 units that went in, and there was a lot of public resistance to that. They had like over 100 people that signed a petition that opposed that. The city council still went ahead and did approve that. But then there was a place right down the street, right there, yeah, that was right after that that got rezoned as R2. They limited the number of units because they were sensitive to the fact that there was opposition in the community for additional density. And so that's all I mentioned is that, I mean, the council has, voted that way in the past.
Yeah.
And so I know that, like, especially it's too bad that Larry Page wasn't here tonight, because I think that he was one of the people on the council that felt that way. And so I guess that's why I was just trying to point out that, yeah, even though this makes sense, I mean, I'm all for multifamily housing. I really am. I want it to be in the right place though. And I think this part of the city just bears the brunt of it. And I think if we want to get serious about spreading it, we got to draw a line in the sand somewhere.
I see. Okay. Lyle, I don't know if you're familiar with it. You familiar at all with the vote that was referenced by Mr. Wood in his email about the council voting against commercial in this area in the past?
Yes, I am. So bear with me as I get my drawing tools out again. It was fairly recent. You can see it on the map just south along Main Street on Hyde Park Lane. There's roughly a half acre there on the corner that an applicant came before the Planning Commission. And I forget some of the details, whether it even got forwarded along to the city council. Can you see my cursor?
Yeah.
Well, I'll use that instead of drawing. So it was this corner here. It's currently a commercial zone. You can see on this map where the request was made to match the zoning to the east of it, and that was turned down. Unfortunately, I can't tell you if that was stopped at the Planning Commission based on your recommendation or if it did proceed to the council. But in either case, you see that it remains general commercial.
Right.
Well, so there, in my memory, there's actually been 3 proposals, 2 more recent ones. The one you just mentioned, Lyle. Then there was one further south on 200 North near Meadows Lane or Drive, whatever. There was a proposal to add in some multifamily, and I think, at least from the Planning Commission, and this was back to my comment about me evolving on commercial. I think I said we want to preserve commercial, so I think my vote was to recommend denial there. But then the other one, that R2 that you had circled in green before, Lyle, I think, in my opinion, that was, I believe, under when Mayor Hyatt was mayor. No, I'm saying up above Francis Peak, on Mutton Hollow, the R2, right there. That's not Stone Lane, but right next to it, just to the southwest of Stone Lane. That R2 got the density got reduced there. I think, I mean, people can differ with this. I think it was a vocal minority. There was a very loud vocal minority that I think the council listened to, but it was based in the concept of this area has too much multifamily. So that has been an ongoing discussion here in this area. And I am cognizant of that personally. And I'm saying that this corner property is, I think it's conducive to what's being proposed. And there's plenty of other good commercial still in existence that will get built out over probably the next 20 or 30 years and will be great amenities for Kaysville. But, we think commercial is important, and it is, but it has to be the right commercial. And whether we like it or not, there are surrounding communities that are addressing commercial better than Kaysville is, because they're just in better locations or whatever. And so this loss of this corner is not going to be in the long run, detrimental to general commercial in Kaysville, in my opinion.
Yeah, maybe I can just make a comment, Josh. I mean, I think that speaking for the people in this area, I think the people kind of given up because they see that the city council doesn't really represent. Like they come to the council and ask them not to rezone, and then the city council doesn't listen. When a proposal comes before the council that's opposed on the west of I-15, they listen to them, and so people just give up, and so that's why they just don't care. So there's apathy in this area. There were a lot of the way people voted on this, like, or responded, is there were a bunch of people that moved. They sold their houses, and after the vote at Crimson Court, and then what was replaced was, instead of selling to another homeowner, they sold it to a company that rents them out now. So we have an evolution in this community of going from like people selling their homes, and then it goes to rentals. And it's because people are giving up because they are tired of the high density.
Huh. Interesting.
And I think he brings up a good point too. So obviously, we posted within 500 feet, but what's within 500 feet? It's a cornfield at the most and Tasties. So maybe that's part of the reason why we're not getting a lot of awareness.
Maybe, and we'll see. I may get more awareness once it goes to the council. When I look at impact on this, I hear the sides of the argument. And as far as impact on the community, I don't know that it's really that different between a commercial development and a higher density multifamily residential property or a development. So as far as the impact on the community goes, I don't see a lot of difference between the two. If anything, I probably see even more of an impact on the area from the commercial than from the high density residential. The difference may be just in tax revenue, tax dollars available to the city from commercial versus higher density. So I don't know. I'm kind of sympathetic to the proposal for the higher density project rather than leaving it commercial. It seems to me like that if it were a good commercial property, it probably would have gone that way already. And we do have a lot of other commercial property in the area, so there's still a lot of opportunity available there. So I don't know, it's kind of my thinking on it.
Mr. Chair, this is staff again. I know it's the public hearing, I believe, has been closed. I have at least one individual with a hand raised if you're inclined to take it. I don't know.
How's the commission feel? Do you want to hear from any more?
Yes, I would.
Well. Okay, Scott or Lyle, let's go ahead.
Okay, so I've got John Conrad. You've had your hand up. You're now unmuted. Or will be very soon. Now you should be live, John, if you have any comments you'd like to make to the commission.
Yes, thank you. So I've lived on Mutton Hollow for about 21 years, and now we moved a couple of blocks off of Mutton Hollow. And we've seen an increase in traffic. A lot of our neighbors on that west end of Mutton Hollow did rent out their houses because they were dissatisfied with the atmosphere of the community becoming more and more apartment and less of single family residences. And that left turn onto Main Street is a hassle at rush hour for Mutton Hollow. So that's definitely something to consider if a traffic light could be installed there. I think that would make some people a little more appeased about it. But does this have to be take it from commercial to high density apartments, or could we go to single family or townhomes or something like that? That might be something that I'd say we'd feel a little better as residents in that little area there.
Okay, all right, thank you. No, appreciate your comments. Okay, back to the commissioners. Where are we at, commissioners? Any more discussion, or is somebody willing to try a motion?
If I started out on comments and my opinion stays the same, so I'm willing to try a motion
All right.
that we approve a rezone from general commercial to RM at 650 north, at approximately 650 North Main Street.
So that would be a recommending to the council approval of the proposed rezone.
Yes, yep, thank you.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Steve seconds that motion. All right, back to the commission for discussion. Any further discussion on this motion?
I would just add that we recommend, and maybe this goes without saying, but we recommend that the council gather more data with respect to utility and infrastructure capacity and confirm what we already suspect is the, adequacy of the roads to handle the additional traffic.
And Josh had also put in there that they look at a potential for putting some sort of a light or traffic study for a light in there for the future, because I think it's they need some accommodation for that.
I think that, yeah, that certainly could be studied, I think, as part of the potential impact on traffic from the development that might occur here. All right.
I would accept those amendments to the motion. I do just want to note that this stretch of road is a state-owned. It's SR 126, I believe, state-owned by UDOT, and they have their own provisions as far as what warrants a stoplight and proximity to other lights. So there's likely a really clear-cut answer with reaching out to UDOT Region 1 on this area. The 5-lane road itself can handle many more times the annual average daily traffic that this gets, and there was just the widening of that stretch to add the lane on the right side. So I would accept that motion as far as a study it, but I don't feel like it warrants necessarily a time or expense of a traffic study personally, unless the planning commission feels that way.
Okay.
I
would agree.
If I may, Mr. Chair, just add a comment to Commissioner Hess's comments. We've recently done studies on this intersection, and it meets multiple warrants. And so something is in the works. I don't know the exact timing on it, but yeah, we would expect in the near future that there would be a signalized intersection. Based on.
Thank you, Al. Good.
Maybe then to piggyback on Scott's comment, which I agree with. I guess I'm not saying a full-blown traffic study, but a strong suggestion to the applicant that if they want to make a strong case to the council, who may not be as friendly as we are, they come with some informal traffic data that can make their persuasive case.
Agreed.
Just a comment with the motion as it is, we are recommending just a rezone to the RM zone and really not anything very specific beyond that. So that would pretty much open the door to whatever is allowed in that RM zone. I know we have this proposal in front of us from Destination Homes, and I would anticipate that they fully intend to follow through with this development as proposed. But just so everybody's aware of that and you feel comfortable with that. Okay, if there's no further discussion, let's go for a vote. Looks like I'm up to vote first, so I vote aye. Toby?
Nay.
Steve?
Aye.
Juan?
Nay.
Scott?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
And Abby?
Aye.
We have 2 negative votes, the remaining all in favor of recommending the approval for the rezone. We appreciate the applicant and everyone's time on this, and this will now move forward to the city council for their consideration. Lyle, when any idea when we might anticipate the council taking this up?
So normally it would move forward to the next meeting, which I believe is next week on the 16th, if I'm getting my timing right. We'll work with the applicant if there are items as discussed by the planning commission that need to be prepared ahead of time that will likely be the subsequent meeting, which would be the first Thursday in May, getting my months right. I suspect for this particular is more realistic in May.
Okay, thank you very much.
Appreciate the council's time tonight, and we look forward to seeing you guys again.
Thanks, Mr. Warren. I appreciate it. All right, let's move on to the next item, which is another rezone. Got a bunch of them. A rezone of 3.68 acres from A1 light agricultural district to the R1 LD single family low density zoning district, located at 706 South Angel Street. And then also a preliminary plat for the James Place subdivision, which if we move forward on that will be a recommendation at this time as well, or subject to the council's approval of the rezone if they do that. So the applicant is Vernon Smith, and we'll turn first to the staff.
Thank you again. So this one will give a brief introduction to the address. Again, as stated by the chair, right off of Angel Street, and this essentially is at the corner of our roundabout at Richer Lane, just south of Tyler's Way and Romola Street on the west side of the road. You can see the acreage there. There are currently multiple parcels, but they're all owned by the same family and owner. About 3.5 acres of property. The existing zoning, it's the A1, it's an agricultural property. Roughly, if it were to be developed, you would see essentially one home per acre. And they're requesting the R1 LD zone, which is similar, found in those yellow zoning designations here on your map, which is similar to the R120 and RA, which are the other green, bright green and brown colors here on the map, which are 20,000 or half acre square foot zoning designations. Those are roughly 2 unit per acre. The difference between the R1 LD and the R120 or RA zones is the R1 LD is a strict requirement at 2 units per acre, but it allows for flexibility in lot sizes so that not every lot is half an acre or 20,000 square feet. Lots can be as small as 12,000 square feet in size, but again, it still restricts the density. So in theory, you may have one lot that's 3/4 of an acre and one lot that's 1/4 of an acre roughly. So again, only 2 homes on the acre, but different sizes, so it creates some variety. In this particular case, the applicant, there's an existing home on site, and then the family is proposing to maintain that. The lot for that, it's a little hard for me to see, but is roughly an acre still in size. And then there would be 5 other new lots created, all fronting Angel Street, that range in size 17,000 square feet or larger. So again, even though the property at its based on its 3.5 acres of total land could have an additional lot on it, they're maintaining it at 6. Each of the lots proposed on the concept or preliminary plat meets the frontage and lot size requirements for the zone and is under the potential density for the R1 LD zoning district. So 2 items as mentioned by the chair. And again, here's the first is the consideration of the rezone. So again, that's the legislative recommendation. We're looking at it to see if it's appropriate for the area. The second is the preliminary plat. And it's our recommendation that if the planning commission finds the rezone to be appropriate, that you would recommend approval of the preliminary plat as it meets the standards and requirements of the requested R1 LD zone. Again, a recommendation on both of those. The city council ultimately has final say on each item. As far as the plat's concerned, just maybe a couple comments. It's fairly standard. The improvements and right-of-way are in place along the west side of Angel Street. So that's pretty well set. The item that the family and the surveyor and civil firm that's working on this are aware of that's maybe a little bit unique is on the far south end, there's an open creek and some sensitive areas that we're cognizant of and working around and ensure that's consistent appropriately with the final plat, the staff's recommendation. With that, I'll close my comments and as stated, remind you of the public hearing and go from there.
All right. Questions of the staff by the commissioners?
So Lyle, on that south end closest to Roush Lane, that final lot sits in a firm map zone A. Is that going to be remediated or has that been remediated already? What's the plan? Because that creek it shows zone A on the firm map. I mean, it's pretty obvious that it's in the major flood zone.
Yeah, so we're aware of the flood zone designation on that, and that's something we've been in talks with, whether a LOMAR or something is done, which is a letter of map revision through FEMA, which would verify that, in fact, the existing designation can be changed and modified based on more site-specific conditions, or they're welcome to do certain improvements or things to mitigate that. Or it may simply be that we maintained those conditions if that's what's found on there, and we would place restrictions on that lot, possibly eliminate came down to it. So you're spot on with the consideration, and we would have more information at final plat.
Is that something we can put into any kind of rezone consideration?
I'd more plat.
That's fine.
Yes, with the plat, I think would be appropriate.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Other questions? All right, hearing no other questions, let's turn to the applicant, Mr. Smith, if he's here.
Yes, he is here. I'm just giving him his turn.
All right.
Okay, Alan Smith, you're live. Go ahead.
Yes, this is Alan Smith. Vernon Smith's my brother.
Go ahead.
This is the last of our family estate. It's been in the family for 170 years. So we're kind of reluctant to let it go, but we're scattered all over the country now. And my siblings and I need to find a way to share this between us and to make this sellable land. My brothers will remain in the principal residence. The lot on the end, we particularly chose to make that a 3/4 acre lot so that on the north side of that lot, that southern lot, is a buildable space that would be outside of the flood zone. But we just stand for any questions that you might have of us.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Smith. Commissioners, any questions? No questions? Okay. This is, again, a public hearing. We'll do the public hearing for both the rezone request and for the preliminary plat. And with that, we will turn to Lyle. Lyle, is there anyone here to comment?
Currently, Mr. Chair, I see no additional comments. I made simply remark I had at least one phone call that I fielded regarding this that simply wanted to know what it was and seemed to be okay with the request. And then I'm looking for, if you'll give me a moment, I believe there was an email correspondence to the Planning Commission on this one.
Right.
But I think
right,
based on their understanding of density.
Yeah. Did you find that email? I'm looking real quick myself. Yeah, it's the email from Kayleen Van Noy. Did you find that, Lyle, or should I go ahead and read it?
Yeah, you beat me to it, so you're welcome to. I'll keep looking. Looks like I have it here that I'd be happy to read as well.
Yeah, go ahead. If you've got it, go for it.
Yeah, so I show received April 6th from Kayleen Van Noy, 870 South Ruche Lane. Says, I'm responding to the notice I received regarding a rezone of the Smith property at 706 South Angel Street, 41 to R1 LD. Using my rudimentary math skills and knowledge of the property, I come up with about 12 homes possibly being built on that property with that zone change. I live near the property at 870 South Ruche Lane. I do not wish for the commission to approve the rezone. I think that is too many homes on that particular property, as it is a narrow property along an already busy Angel Street with school children walking and being driven to Jefferson, Snowhorse, and Centennial. In addition, this area was designated to be half-acre to 1-acre lots in the Kaysville master plan for a more rural feel. At least that is according to my knowledge. Most of us in recent years moved here with that understanding and expectation. A rezone of RA or R120 would be safer, more sensible, and more in line with the resident expectations of the area. Thank you for allowing me to comment and considering my opinion. That closes her remarks.
Okay. Well, and the obvious answer to that one is even, I'm not sure about her calculations, but regardless, the proposal shows 6 lots, which we would also be approving or recommending for approval if this moves forward for a preliminary plat tonight. So that would be half of the number that she's concerned about. Okay, anybody else? Lyle, is anybody showing, wishing to make comments?
No, we're getting less popular. I've only got 6 people still participating and I don't see any other hands.
Our ratings are going down. Man, okay. All right, if there's nobody else to comment, Mr. Smith, any other comments you'd like to make?
Just in response to Ms. Van Noy's concern, the only lot that is below half-acre is the second lot up from the south. And I think that one is just under, it's over 1/3 of an acre, but I can't, it's too small for me to read it right now. But most of them, almost all of them are half an acre or more. The lot just north of the house may be just a tad under half an acre to accommodate some irrigation issues and some setback requirements for the existing home. But most of them are half acre approximately in size.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Smith. Any other questions or comments of the applicant from the commissioners? Okay, let's go ahead and close the public hearing and let's turn this to the commissioners. Commissioners, any discussion? Hearing none, are we ready to make motions? If we are, let's do this in 2 pieces. Let's do a motion on the recommendation on the rezone first, and then depending on how that goes, then a separate motion on the recommendation for a preliminary plat.
I'll make a motion on the rezone that we recommend approval from A1 to R1 LD as proposed for the James Place subdivision.
Okay, it's a motion by Josh to recommend approval of the rezone. Is there a second?
It's Quan, I'll second that.
Quan has seconded that motion. Discussion by the commission. Just my comment just would be, you know, this zoning fits very well with the area. I really don't see a problem with it. It's in keeping with the character and the nature of the other homes and the properties that are in the area, and I don't really see a problem with the zoning at all.
Yeah, this, in my mind, this is exactly the type of project for why the LD zone was created. And as we can see from the Tyler Meadows subdivision, LD does not mean lesser value homes. Those are probably the most expensive homes in Kaysville, and they're in the LD zone.
Amen. Yeah, good point. Any other comments? All right, let's vote. Toby, we'll start with you.
Aye.
Toby votes aye. Steve?
Aye.
Quan,
Aye.
Scott,
Can you hear me?
now we can.
Aye.
Josh,
Aye.
Abby,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Unanimous vote in favor of recommending the rezone to the city council. Now let's discuss the preliminary plat. Lyle, let me ask you first. Staff has reviewed this and it meets all of the requirements for the preliminary plats in the city code.
That's correct. So we're aware of things to work through again on the engineering and construction details, particular to the floodplain. However, otherwise it's complies with lot size, frontage, and other requirements of our ordinance. We're ready to recommend the preliminary plat.
Steve, what would you be, you mentioned something that you wanted to put something in there with regard to the floodplain. What would be the vision?
I just want to make sure it's remediated correctly so that the impacts are taken care of on that lot appropriately, that they work with staff and engineering.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion on this? Are we ready for a motion? Would someone make a motion?
So I'll make the motion that we approve the preliminary plat for the James Place subdivision, and that we add in the caveat that there be sufficient work with staff and engineering to remediate on that south lot for floodplain.
For the floodplain, all right.
For the floodplain.
He has made a motion to approve the preliminary plat with the provision that he's noted. Is there a second?
I'll second that. It's Toby.
Toby seconds that. Any other discussion by the commission? All right, let's begin the voting. Steve?
I vote aye.
Quan?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
Abby?
Aye.
I vote aye. And Toby?
Aye.
All right, preliminary approval for recommendation of the preliminary plat, depending upon what the council does with the rezone, whether they approve that. All right, let's get on now to our last item for tonight, which is and this is a formality. It's a final plat for the Altair Townhomes, formerly known as the Island View Townhomes. Many of you may remember this issue when we had this before us before, at 750 East, 250 South. Applicant is Advanced Solutions Group. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our final agenda item of the night, just as you've mentioned, is one you've seen before and recently. Here's the property again on the map to help you recall its location at the northeast end of Davis Tech. The property was rezoned recently to the R2 zoning district to accommodate this development. The proposal before you is very consistent with the preliminary plat that was reviewed. And then here are just the final plat details. Staff has reviewed all the construction drawings and engineer in tandem with this and is ready to recommend approval of the Altair Townhome subdivision as presented to you.
Okay, meets all of the requirements of the preliminary plat, I assume, or all of the provisions?
That is correct. And the applicant is one of our remaining attendees this evening if you have any questions of them.
Okay, staff or commission, any questions of staff on this one? As noted, these are usually pretty much a formality. Okay, let's turn to the applicant, see if he has any comments he would like to make.
Hello.
Okay, Mr. Smith, you're on live if you would like to make any comments.
No, I think I just appreciate staff's input on getting these things done. We have made a few adjustments at their recommendation that have improved what we feel is traffic flow and mitigated some potential issues in terms of alignment at the intersection at 700 East. we've also coordinated some additional utility rerouting with Hates Creek and Central Davis to better service the subdivision.
Great. Okay. No, appreciate that insight. We've had a lot of people named Smith on our agenda tonight.
It's not a very common name.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Any questions of the applicant from the commissioners? All right. Seeing none. Commissioners, any other comments or discussion about this? Sounds like it's pretty straightforward. If there is none, then we will entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the final plat for All Taylor Townhomes as proposed.
Motion by Toby to approve the final plat as noted.
I'll second.
That's from Steve.
Correct.
All right. Any other discussion by the commission? All right. Let's begin the voting. Quan.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Josh.
Aye.
Abby.
Aye.
I vote aye. Toby.
Aye.
And Steve. Steve, did we lose you? I'm assuming since he was the maker of the second, or he was seconded the motion, that he is going to vote in favor. Well, we'll see if he comes back. So far it passes, so we will declare that the motion has passed and that the preliminary or the final plat is approved. All right, that takes us to the end of our regular agenda. Lyle, let's take you to the what other items that we have. I guess first of all, we have maybe a call to the public. If there's anyone there that would like to address the commission on any items? We seen anybody?
Yeah, we have just a handful of public still. So far, none of them have raised their hand, so we'll allow them just a moment in case there's any further comments.
Okay.
Looks to me that they're all just happy to watch.
Okay. All right. With that, I've lost my agenda on my Dropbox, but I'll let you just take us from there and complete the meeting with whatever items we have left.
Yeah, so with just a brief update, we'll have a couple ordinance items that we'll have ready before the Planning Commission for consideration at the next meeting. We'll be back on the 26th. I think this went pretty well, especially for a first go, but if there are comments or anything that you have for us with the Zoom meeting format, please let me know.
Anything right off the bat while we have everybody just here online? Is there any comments anyone would like to make about how this went tonight? To me, it seems to go pretty well.
Worked well.
Yeah.
We had a little bit of a rough start with I think the link that was sent out and passwords, so I'm not exactly sure what happened. So maybe I'll reach out to a couple of you that bumped into that just to make sure we understand what that was and make sure that the public can easily get on. But I think we got everyone eventually, and hopefully the public was to let us know if they couldn't join us.
Yeah, and that might be the interesting or the more telling part, is to see what comments we may get from the public with regard to this. Okay.
I believe other than that, unless there are items that the commission would like to direct us to do as staff.
I just have a question about the general plan update, what's happening with that. And I understand with the situation we're all in right now, probably not a lot moving forward, but just curious as to where we're at.
Sarcastically, we were ready to hold our first public meeting tomorrow, and right. So, but we have selected a consultant. We've, I believe, finished and completed the contract with that consultant, which was approved by the city council. We have, with the mayor's help, in selecting a steering committee, sent invitation to members to participate on that, and received confirmation from them. Currently, the consultant is doing data gathering. So they've been asking us as staff for the GIS mapping and other information from the city as they're starting to kind of create the base understanding of the city that they can put the rest of the process on. So We've yet to meet as a steering committee, but that would be the next step once they feel they've got the data needed. And be excited to see what they have from there and move forward. We'll continue to ask if you have questions. And we'll keep posted as stuff comes about.
Sounds good. Looking forward to get it going. I'm trying to think. I mean, I was going to say probably as far as any other meetings or trainings, there's nothing. I mean, everything's been canceled everywhere. So it's just us and our iPads and laptops right now.
We look forward in the coming weeks to a presentation from the league and others on a legislative update. You may remember the date on that. I think that was postponed until first part of May. Is that correct, Mr. Chair?
Well, there is going to be an online Zoom legislative update on April 14th at 11:30. And you can get the link to get onto that either through the league website or the Utah APA website. And we'll see how it goes. This will be a different one, kind of like this whole meeting was a different one. Okay. Well, if that's, unless anyone has anything else, any of the commissioners have anything? If not, we are open for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn. Are there any objections? All right. Thanks all. And I guess we'll try this again in 2 weeks and see how it goes again. I don't know when we'll be actually meeting together again in person. Maybe not too long, I hope. But we
My
shall see.
suspicion is they're going to take the gas off starting in May, slowly but surely.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of guessing June 1st, we may start to see things coming back a little bit. But then again, maybe I'm just being overly optimistic.
I was listening to Larry Kudlow today on CNN and Fox, and he was saying that they want to start scaling things through May and start like week by week, letting things back in place. And I mean, I was reading tonight just out of curiosity early before the meeting, they're seeing that people have some immunity to this that they weren't anticipating. So they think this has already passed through the country earlier than what they thought, and people have developed immunity to it. So they want to do immunity testing across the country.
Yeah. Well, that'd be great if it works. We shall see.
And we shall see and hope and pray.
Yeah. Well, everybody stay safe and stay well.
Wash your hands.
Well, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks.
All right.
Sounds good, everybody.
Thanks
See
all.
you later.